Hello, my name is Ann Cherigino, and this is my short presentation on key concepts of intellectual freedom. The first thing that I looked at was the citizen's request for reconsideration of a book. This was an example found in children's literature briefly on page 236. It's just an example of a form you could use for this, and I found it to be incredibly helpful. As the book pointed out, and as all the readings pointed out, book challenges are likely to happen, and it's super important to be prepared because if we're prepared, then that ensures consistency and it helps make it so that emotional situations are not quite so emotional. So I thought having an example of what this form could look like to be just I thought found that to be really beneficial for me. I don't know that I would necessarily keep it exactly the same, but having that example there as a starting point so that I can create a document for myself for my own library, making sure I'm keeping in mind that I'm at a K through 8 school and so I'm going to have a large range of different kinds of texts and what that might look like, how that might affect the way that I organize the reconsideration of a book form. I just thought would be really helpful. I've had to make this form for other classes, but seeing another example always helpful to see to kind of think about how I would shape it for my own library. The second thing was understanding the levels of complaints and challenges. This I found in the Young Adult Literature and Action book, and I really like this because I don't know that I had a firm grasp of how casual inquiry, complaint, and formal challenge, like all of those were separate and how they all sort of are connected together. I don't think I really understood that. So having it explained to me about how it can escalate and how it should be handled was really helpful. I appreciated that they wrote it in the second person, so it was you do this and you do this because it really gave me a sense that I'm not alone, I guess, in dealing with these kinds of challenges that are probably going to happen. And also thinking it was sort of like a rah rah, like you can do this sort of thing because you can do these things. And then having the parents actually go through all those different levels when they were talking to the librarian, I found to be really insightful and helpful. Um, and then within that, the casual inquiry sort of bullet list, I really appreciated as well. Obviously, some of these things are given. Listen politely, thank them for coming, sharing the selection process. But I had not really considered sharing reviews of the book and the awards one. I mean, especially in a K through 8 school where we have so many awards at the elementary level, like that's really helpful to be able to say to parents, look, not only do I think this is a good book, but more importantly, all these other people think it's a good book. And it's won a bunch of awards that many professional people also think it's a good book. So I think it really takes some of the pressure off of the librarian by being able to bring in those other sources and say, "Look, here are other people saying that this book is worthy of being on our shelves and it has a place here." So I liked that it included that as well. Finally, I did the Library Bill of Rights. I mean, how do you choose between all the things? But I picked 3 that I thought were really most relevant. The first one, books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people of the community the library serves. Of that, the thing that stood out to me was of all the people of the community the library serves. And because I'm at a K-8 school, that's such a huge range. And so really having to think about like, okay, how am I making sure that I'm serving the needs of all of them? Because there's a lot of them and they have a lot of different interests and a lot of different reading levels. So how do you make sure like just being cognizant of like I'm providing stuff for all of those ages and all of those interests and not one over the others? Secondly, libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. So important. I think that nothing should be sort of shoved to the side and pretended like it didn't happen. It needs to be something that shows the way that the world actually was. And that's important to be authentic to our students. And then finally, a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. I think this one is huge. Again, being in a K through 8 school where there's just a huge age range, um, being thoughtful about placement of books and arrangement of books and not necessarily having sections that are, away from or denied to some students, but at the same time kind of gearing them towards books that are developmentally appropriate. I just feel like that's going to be really important. So, those are all of the things that I chose for this presentation. Thank you.